is Emily Freitag, and I'm so happy to be talking today to Varun Gulati at litlab.ai. And we're going to hear about a very interesting product that is in the K2 literacy space, or the elementary literacy space, I should
Yeah.
say. Varun will tell us more. But thanks for joining this tour and for
Thank you for
sharing
having
your
me.
story.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Why don't you
I'm
start by talking about your own story and kind of what got you to the point where you are running a ed tech company?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share more about that. My I guess story begins before me. I come from a family of educators. My dad, my grandma, lots of aunts and uncles. We've all been in the classroom. I studied engineering in college, but I knew that I would, one way or another, wind my way into that world. And so after graduating, I had to teach for America. Had an amazing experience in the classroom down in New Orleans, Louisiana. And then afterwards, I really wanted to fold together my education and engineering backgrounds. So I went into ed tech. I built a lesson sharing tool with a few friends, and we called it U Class. We grew that to a few thousand schools. Eventually, ended up joining the Renaissance family with that product. And then I joined a team called Mystery Science, which was growing rapidly. It was a K through 5 hands-on science platform, and it did a bunch of easy to understand video instruction with readily available supplies, paper plates, cups, pencils
Mhm.
that really made science hands-on and joyful. When I joined, the platform was experiencing a moment of growth. We scaled it to 650,000 teachers,
Mhm.
to a presence in over 70% of US classrooms. And we really saw a lot of love from teachers. Many of them were writing in and asking us to branch out of science
Mhm.
into other subjects and other grade levels as well. We decided to stay in K5. In my last year over there, we put together a little group and tried to understand where within K5 could we branch out other than science.
Mhm.
I ended up talking to a lot of teachers, and there were two themes that dominated: reading and writing. I learned a lot about the shift to science of reading, heard from educators who were both excited about it, but also frustrated by
Mhm.
a number of different aspects of that transition from instructional materials to how scripted the lessons were. Moving, many of these educators are moving from a balanced literacy world where the
Mhm.
center was around like presence of words and the joy of reading, which there are lots of problems with the balanced literacy world, but
Mhm.
in many ways the structural literacy world hasn't yet caught up in finding ways to like compensate for those choice and for joy, and for really meeting every student where it's at, especially in that particular moment of like 5, 6 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, the team ended up building a product known as mystery writing, but I left and wanted to explore the reading space a bit more. And so we ended up building eventually a product that was a story generator for kids. And it basically took a bunch of inputs from students of like, what character do you want? What do you want the story to be about? And it created a story on the fly. We launched it a few weeks before ChatGPT launched. We brought that to classrooms, and we generally saw that the students loved it, but educators told us that they don't have time for it.
Mhm.
Uh, we took that to heart when we actually started to like sit more with educators and really observe like where they were in their journeys of science and reading, looking for support. One of the things we saw is that they were spending a good amount of time on these amazing foundational literacy programs, but they still struggled to get enough practice for students and
Mhm.
practice with the skills that were taught that day. Um, that's what brought us to the world of decodables. Eventually, we brought that to curriculum aligned decodables, and then more broadly, foundational literacy practice, where students are reading aloud those decodables and we're actually bubbling up insights to those teachers. So
Mhm.
that's the journey of how we got to LitLab.
Great. So tell us about litlab in more depth. Really, you just started to whet the appetite there, but what
Yeah,
is it? What is this product trying to do? What job is it trying to help teachers do, and students do? And get practical with us about sort of like how it works in a literacy block.
Yeah, that's happy to do so. I think maybe before I jump to that, I'll frame this a little bit by describing what the world looks like for educators in foundational literacy today. Um, the headline here is that millions of educators are now in the world of structured literacy or science of reading as we know it, and they're not short on products.
Mm-hmm.
In many cases, they're running not one, but multiple instructional programs. Maybe a program for tier one and a different one for tier two, and a
Mm-hmm.
different one for tier three, a different phonemic awareness program and a spelling program. And so they have like anywhere from 2 to 5 instructional programs.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have assessments, and the assessments are they range from benchmarks and diagnostics to screener data. And this data is often very valid, but it also often it comes too late and it's not tied to the instruction itself. So these assessments are typically administered a few times a year, or they're run by the state, or they're in the best case scenario run on a weekly basis. But they don't necessarily give educators insights into those programs that I mentioned earlier, the tier one, tier two, tier three programs, and to how their students are progressing on those programs. Then you have practice.
Mm-hmm.
And many of these tools in the practice side, they range in terms of their quality and their fidelity to structural literacy. Some of them are perhaps, let's say, too far grounded in the old world of balanced literacy. Students are just having random books that they can choose from that are not really connected to anything in the world of structural literacy. In other cases, perhaps it is more in the realm of foundational literacy, but it's far more drill and kill type of practice. You give a student a particular phonics exercise, and it's like match the sound to the picture, and it's you do that over and over and over and over again,
Yeah.
and to the point where you start to wonder like, is that actually how does this actually like contribute to student learning? Um, that practice too is often disconnected from the instruction because the programs that our educators are using, they they typically are not coming from the same curriculum providers. And so if you teach from, let's say, I don't know, like you fly lesson 47, but the program that you're doing for practice is iReady, those are iReady is created by curriculum associates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the mapping of that program to UFly doesn't, you can point to the same skill, but it doesn't necessarily imply that it's it is a cumulative representation of all the skills that were taught in foundational literacy, which is particularly important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anyways, all this to say is that there are a bunch of programs. There's no shortage of programs.
Yep.
Oftentimes, this data, this practice, and this instruction is not aligned to each other. And that is what we call instructional incoherence.
Mm-hmm.
And that incoherence is what leads to gaps. And those gaps compound fastest for the students who are furthest behind.
Mm-hmm.
That's the meta problem that we are seeing, that we're
Yep.
looking to solve. And where we in particular come in is that there are really two major pieces of the platform, or three, I should say. The first major piece is we've created thousands of curriculum aligned decodables. And so decodables are phonics readers. And what makes a decodable unique is that they're what's known as they're controlled readers. If your student has learned, let's say, 22 different phoneme grapheme correspondences through direct explicit instruction, the phonics reader should primarily, not exclusively, but primarily incorporate those 22 phonics
Mm-hmm.
skills. The
Yeah.
the challenge here is that every program introduces skills at different points in time. So what one program says is like the CK digraph, it's introduced at a different point in time than a different program, sometimes even a different grade entirely. So good phonics reader will be something that's joyful, relevant, covers all the skills that were taught up until that point, or primarily covers those skills and respects the rules of the program, syllabic constraints, exclusions, heart words, you name it. So
Mm-hmm.
we create the first product that we have is a joyful readers that an educator can um, display on the screen, whole class
Wow.
projected to the screen, or print out for students to read, or sign it for
Mm-hmm.
students to read. And the signing hints at our second product, which is our student practice. Our student practice is the short of it is that students can read into a microphone. And along with that daily reading, they are doing spelling practice that's aligned to the skills that were taught that day. It feels like a regular story for them. It's not a test. They read, and that unlocks a picture, which is a very joyful experience for the kids. Afterwards, we provide a little bit of corrective feedback based upon what we heard from the student and what mistakes they may have made during the reading.
And is that corrective picture provided to the student or to the teacher?
Both. So the
Okay.
corrective, and on the student side, what we do is if we recognize that a student is struggling, let's say with the word ship,
Hmm.
we'll segment the phonemes and we'll show the what each phoneme sounds like,
Hmm.
along with a mouth lips tongue video of what that how to pronounce that phoneme. And then we'll blend it together and we'll ask the student to do the same, pronounce it and then blend it together.
Hmm.
Then on the teacher side, to your point, that's our where third piece of it comes in, which is our curriculum insights. We take every word a student has said and we map that to the chosen scope and sequence for this. So we're able to help the educator see visually how
Hmm.
a student is progressing on their scope and sequence,
Hmm.
how their entire class is progressing on the scope and sequence, and that allows them to see on a lesson by lesson basis where students are succeeding and where they're struggling.
Hmm.
That's the core of what we do.
So, Varun, show us what this looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, this is Drew McCann. I am the head of learning at litlab, and I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the student practice platform. So let's say I'm a teacher and I just taught lesson 47, TH digraph on the UFly scope and sequence. And my students have mastered it and they're ready to move on to lesson 48. So I would create a new assignment on litlab. I would select the lesson, lesson 48, CH digraph, select the stories I want to assign from the grab and go library, and I'm going to select read aloud mode because I want my students to read aloud and I want the AI fluency analysis. Here I'm going to select the whole class, and now I've created an assignment. Now I'm going to log in as a student so you can see the student experience. So here you can see I'm now logged in as a student. I already read the story Kath and the Chick, and I get to choose which one I want to do next. So I'm going to choose Pax Gets a Pal.
Before you read, let's practice spelling a few words from the story.
So the spelling activity uses target skill words from the story, so students can practice that target skill pattern.
Spell the word branch. Like in the sentence, he tries to scratch it on a branch. Branch.
So I'm going to make an intentional error here so you can see the error analysis and feedback flow.
Nice try. Let's listen to the sounds in the word. B, r, a, ch. Now you try. Tap the tiles to spell the word. Amazing work. Tap the green arrow to read the story. Click the yellow microphone and read the story out loud.
Pax is a cat. He has an itch on his chip. So here you can see I made an intentional error, and students at the end of the story go through a error analysis and feedback flow where they practice the orthographic mapping of the word. We also have comprehension questions that are woven throughout the story for quick checks for understanding. So once I finish my last story, I will be able to create a story which students love and often find it very rewarding. Now I'm going to log back in as a teacher so you can see what the teacher view looks like on the progress monitoring views. Okay, so now I'm logged back in as a teacher and I can see that Avery has read 2 out of her 3 story assignments and has 98% average accuracy. I can dig down deeper into the individual stories that she read by pressing view details here. And If you remember, I said chip instead of chin, and the AI categorized this as an incorrect word, and the teacher can listen to the student read aloud as well. Also, the teacher can go into skill maps and see the progress monitoring of my students mapped against my scope and sequence. So for example, here is Avery, and I can see Avery is struggling with that CK diagraph, SH diagraph, and does not yet have data for CH diagraph. Those are the stories that I just read, so this will populate tomorrow, and the teacher can see how Avery's doing on that lesson that teacher just taught. So that is a quick view of LitLab's progress monitoring and student practice platform, and I hope you enjoyed it.
You've shown us a lot of different aspects and features, and it does seem like this is a product that's growing in a variety of directions. Bring us back to the core of like, if I'm going to use LitLab, here's what this is going to do for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll articulate that from both the student perspective as well as the teacher perspective, because they're both equally important. From the student perspective, when they sit down to read, they want to read stories and text that are enjoyable and that they can actually read, meaning decode, so that reading actually feels like something they can do and something they can love and something they can succeed at, not something that's a chore, something to struggle through. On the teacher side, there are really two major jobs to be done, say. One is that when their data comes back, they want to see it in a way that's clearly represented through the lens of their curriculum so that they know how their students are progressing in the program that they spend hours and hours in every single week. Not just that a kid is below benchmark or above or on track, but far more specificity to the program. And they also want to know that when their students are practicing independently, that practice is aligned to what they taught that day so that it reinforces the instruction rather than running parallel to it.
And where does AI live in the product?
Yeah, in a few different places. At the core of our engine is an alignment engine that maps to each district's scope and sequence across several different tier one programs. That coupling is largely deterministic, but there are elements of it that are very AI driven. And you see that especially in certain aspects, such as our decodable generator, which allows for educators to create decodables that are aligned to their curriculum and they're at high quality. High quality meaning they're high decodability, they're relevant in terms of the educational context, and they actually represent the learning concepts that are meant to be taught.
And they have the biggest eye animals I've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's correct. Yeah.
Marker of quality right there.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last place we have AI is in the automatic speech recognition. So we listen to how a student is reading and we analyze every word that they say and determine what words they're actually reading correctly versus incorrectly.
Okay. Great, thank you. So, what do you know about impact so far? How well is it doing the jobs that you've set out to do, and where are the sort of learning edges?
Yeah, there are a few different pieces to this. So, on our impact journey, we started off by creating a logic model in partnership with an organization called litlab Education. And that helped us really articulate what's the foundation with which we are drawing our pedagogical techniques from. And there are a few different pieces to that, ranging from phonics and systematic explicit phonics instruction, practice, the daily application of taught patterns in a connected text. And we know that practice volume does predict decoding fluency, which therefore justifies high volume sequence decodable reading. Alignment, that's a growing body of research. Alignment across assessment, curriculum, and practice. That alignment beats quality alone. We actually saw a recent piece of research from Knox County where they did an RCT, which showed that high dosage tutoring saw additional 3 months, 1.3 months of learning versus unaligned tutoring. And it was strongest for the bottom 10%. So it's a direct very recent, this is last year, evidence
Mhm.
of the what I would say is like the coherence premium.
Mhm.
Uh, it draws on bodies of research around data-driven instruction as well. That progress monitoring data works well when it's translated into the specific curriculum, and as well as around formative assessment and formative feedback as well. But that's the research basis, I'd say.
Mhm.
We did a feasibility study with Lean Lab Education in 2024
Mhm.
and Digital Promise League of Innovative Schools. And then this school year, our major effort has been to run a quasi experimental design study where we're actually analyzing treatment classrooms versus what are control or business as usual classrooms. We're working with an independent external evaluator, a third party research firm. And we're seeing that given a certain amount of dosage, how does that actually move outcomes? And the outcomes that we're tracking over here are primarily decoding and fluency for K1 and 2. And
As
we're
measured
measuring
by
it.
their screener data.
Yeah, the Arkansas State assessment, which is known as Atlas. So
Yeah.
that's Atlas is the one that we're going to be that we have been
Mhm.
comparing the pre and post measures for. We just completed the data collection of that, and it's in the middle of analysis right now.
Okay, so more to come this fall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then based on the experience people have using LitLab and everything you've learned so far, where do you see going from here?
On the
On the product
in that side,
roadmap and generally on the functionalities and features? What needs to keep running the way it's running? What needs to get better? What needs to be added?
yeah, that's a good question. So, there are a few pieces to this that we're very interested in expanding. Um, right now, the sort of connective tissue is everyday practice to easy progress monitoring. And there are lots of different pieces within that. Um, we want to make sure that the quality of the input is very strong. So the data that we collect from students, that means better automatic speech recognition, better spelling exercises. It means making it easier for educators to implement student practice in the classroom in a way that allows them to maintain fidelity with the program as well.
Hmm.
It means a better analysis of all the data that's collected. So the engine that takes all of this data, spelling data, oral reading data, analyzes it, but and actually represents a truthy picture of what a student has mastered and
Hmm.
what they perhaps could use extra support with. That better engine around that analysis.
Hmm.
And then finally, it means translating that into easy to understand action and guidance for educators. So
Hmm.
that means for us experimenting with different representations of that data,
Hmm.
trying out different forms of instructional guidance. So we have currently underway, for example, a small research sprint that we're doing with some of our partners at Technical, as well as one of our curriculum partners, Reading Horizons,
Hmm.
where we've ingested the entire curriculum,
Hmm.
all of the materials, reteach guides, differentiation modules, high frequency word toolkits, you name it, but every single piece of it, not just a scope and sequence. And we were trying to see over here, given the recommendations from the engine, can more specific recommendations that are more grounded within the curriculum
Hmm.
that actually surface up the relevant resource,
Hmm.
can those uh, perform with a similar fidelity as what a curriculum expert would recommend. They're like the same experts who wrote the curriculum.
Hmm.
It's a really fascinating study. That's just an example of like one of the
Yeah.
veins that we're exploring over here, but it goes into the realm of like guidance and can we
Yeah.
create better guidance for educators that helps them use their program better and therefore move learning outcomes with
Yeah.
us with greater fidelity.
Well, I think there are many teachers that are very familiar with the challenge you describe of having a ton of different programs, a ton of different pieces of information. So we look forward to continuing to learn what you learn about how AI can help solve some of those challenges for teachers and for kids.
Yeah, we do too. Yeah.
Thank you, Varun. Great to have you on the series, and we'll keep learning together.
Likewise. Thank you, Emily.